This presentation deals with how the Congo became a Cold War battleground with a particular focus on the Congo crisis of 1960 to 1963. To begin, it is important to provide context to paint a picture of Congo in early 1960. Congo had long been under Belgian control. However, on June 30th, 1960, Congo gained its independence, which sparked the subsequent chaos. This disorder drew in Western powers for multiple reasons, including the protection of their mineral sources, the opportunity to capitalize further, and the pretense of fighting communism, for they thought Congo was susceptible to a communist takeover. In his book, Cold War in the Congo, Mr. Villafana cites the causes of Congo's prominence in the Cold War as Congo's independence from Belgium, Congo's economic value embedded in its mineral wealth, and the absence of Congolese leadership after the independence. Patrice Lumumba started the National Congolese Movement in 1958. Lumumba was a staunch advocate of Congo gaining independence from Belgium. Upon becoming Prime Minister in 1960, after his party, the MHC, won the parliamentary elections, Lumumba wanted social and economic changes, which obviously put Congo on the radar of the CIA. The takeover of power was in no way smooth, as military mutinies and other tensions remained even after Congo was granted independence on June 30th, 1960. The Belgian government thought it necessary to keep a paratrooper presence in the Congo to protect Belgian citizens. Without the permission of the Congolese government, this Belgian presence escalated tensions as they undermined the authority of Lumumba. More problems arose when Moshe Tshomba declared the lucrative mining region of Katanga independent. With Congo seemingly falling apart at the seams, it was at this point that the United Nations got involved. In fact, Lumumba kept asking more and more of the UN, who were technically only allowed to use force when acting in self-defense. Lumumba was infuriated by what he perceived as a lack of effort on the part of the UN, and even accused them of siding in the interest of Katanga and the European countries that profited from its mining region. Beginning to feel exasperated, Lumumba went to the USSR for help. They provided sufficient weapons for Lumumba and his followers to launch an attack to regain Katanga. After this attack failed, Lumumba was ousted from power and quickly proceeded to try to set up a rival government. His efforts, however, were in vain because he was murdered by mercenaries on January 17, 1961. Now, at this point, various factions had emerged which polarized Congo, and each group claimed the right to lead Congo. First, there were the government, now being run by military general Mobutu. There were also the loyal supporters of ex-Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba, who were fighting on after his death. Thirdly, there was Tshomba and his group in Katanga, and finally, there was emerging a fledgling group under the self-appointed King Albert Kalonji. The Congo crisis was a case of heightened awareness and concern amidst the paranoia of the Cold War, in which all eyes became fixed on the political landscape of Congo. As CIA Director Alan Dulles notes in a cable sent to the Congo CIA station chief, he says, quote, "If Lumumba continues to hold high office, the inevitable result will be at best chaos, and at worst pave the way to a communist takeover of Congo." Now, the USSR and Communist China also sensed this pivotal moment. For them, securing a communist presence in Africa and simultaneously cutting off the West's investment in Congo would be a sweet victory indeed. Clearly, a power struggle was imminent. The US was keeping a very close watch on the emerging factions. However, what was most unsettling to the US was the USSR's impending involvement in the region. Thus, needless to say, tensions were very high, especially if one considers the ideological warfare the Cold War was already presenting. The US's primary concern was containing communism. Having seen communism harbor itself in China and potentially Latin America, the prospect of it spreading to another continent was frightening to say the least. So the UN Security Council launched various campaigns to quell the situation and entice Katanga to reunite with Congo once again. After various talks and unsuccessful efforts, in late 1962, Tshamba fled Congo, which subsequently led to the reunification of Congo in 1963. The UN was subsequently satisfied and regarded their efforts as a success because they had managed to de-escalate what the US saw as a potential breeding ground for communism, and also keep the USSR out of Africa. However, they ran into trouble when countries like Russia refused to contribute to UN funds for their Congo campaign. Although it could be expected, it pushed the UN to the brink of bankruptcy. Now, to examine the crisis from the perspective of Congo and its third world neighbors, what they could see was the polarization between East and West that was highly indicative of the Cold War in general. Russia and the East they saw as weak because they were unable to come to the aid of Lumumba. And the West they saw as greedy and unethical based on their sense of moral obligation to interfere and capitalize in Africa. Now, although the UN is credited with eventually resolving this problem, many assert that the UN was actually a puppet under the US's control at this time. In fact, a good example of this would be, towards the beginning of the crisis, US officials Bunch and Cordier served as representatives to the UN Secretary General Hammarskjöld in Congo at this time. This is an example of how the lines between US interests and UN interests became blurred. The Cold War had created an environment in which the US's paramount concern was containing the spread of communism, especially through what they perceived as Soviet influence, and this included in Africa. The popular support Lumumba was gaining made the US deeply distrustful, and his plea to the USSR deepened their fears. Some regard the US as heroic for seeking to stem the flow of evil communism. However, others recognize the selfish nature of their actions as they were seeking to protect their mineral riches of the Congo from the opposition.